Hello everybody, and welcome to the first Flowers on Mars journey. When was the last time you stopped to look at a flower, at a cloud, or a tree? Just carried away by your imagination. Would we be able to grow flowers on Mars? Flowers on Mars is a journey in which imagination and knowledge bound together to give you back the sense of wonder in this world that is pretty much disenchanted. Flowers on Mars is a new way of thinking in a society that knows all the detail but lost the big picture. But let us introduce ourselves first. So my name is Silvia. I grew up climbing in the Italian Alps. I'm an author and I'm a former teacher. I have studied philosophy and I'm now a PhD in classical studies at Boston University.
And I'm Adrian, and I grew up on the other side of the border, hiking the Swiss Alps. I studied biomedicine and I'm currently a postdoctoral researcher at MIT. I'm a photographer and an enthusiastic swim teacher. Last year, on a shiny and uncommonly warm day, November day, Sylvia and I met randomly in a cozy coffee place in Cambridge. That day, we discussed ancient mythology and RNA, and discovered that our areas of knowledge had more in common than we actually thought.
Yeah.
We realized that this society of hyperspecialization, in which subjects are taught strictly separated from each other, and in which single bubbles of expertise are getting smaller and smaller, we risk failing to see the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
Even if specialization is necessary, obviously, at the same time it is weakening our capability to receive the world as a playground of connections in which everything resonates in everything else, like a mysterious unified symphony.
Yes, Flowers on Mars wants to be an educational project that will walk you through the infinite and sometimes invisible association of the web of knowledge. Flowers on Mars is a new way of teaching, and at the same time, a very ancient and old way of teaching, like a gaze that sees the world as one, as our ancestors did when they started sailing, looking at the stars, or when they invented chants or dances just to give meaning to their existences. So buckle up, because once you start to see the right connections, a single little flower can take you to Mars in the blink of an eye.
In this first journey, we will enter this poisonous stomach of a little lizard. We'll learn how difficult it is to escape the vengeance of Zeus, the gatherer of clouds. Then we will spend a rainy summer night in a Swiss villa amid charming young poets, opium, and horror stories. Finally, carried by the power of electricity, we will reach the unexplored edges of biocomputing, where biology, artificial intelligence, and science fiction meet. But now it's time to start, Sylvia, don't you think?
Oh yes, I think so. So open the palm of your hand, because our journey starts here. So imagine a little black salamander, no bigger than your hand, reveals a belly as red as fire. So this little flaming lizard is called the fire belly newt. He lives in Japan and hides one of the most toxic molecules in the world, right in its stomach. The bright scalar color that this little critter exhibits is actually a signal to the predators. Don't mess with me, because I can kill you. So, and the black and the red are the two colors, and two different colors for two different words. Only predators lurking in the water perceive the red colors and take it as a warning signal. The black color, on the other hand, helps the critter to escape notice from the predators above. Nature knows the art of deception. This tricky technique is known as deception coloration. All sorts of predators are fooled.
And this coloration indeed marks a serious threat and should not be ignored. If a predator gets in contact with the salamander, the predator's muscles start to become numb, and quickly its entire body stops functioning and gets paralyzed. Those are the cascades effects of a very powerful poison, a toxin to be precise, called Tetrodotoxin, which is far more potent than arsenic.
Wow.
Tetrodotoxin prevents the electrical signals, which are generated in our nerve cells, to get transported throughout the body.
Yeah, so imagine an electrical signal travels from your brain to your arm just because it wants to say, hey, let's move. Tetrodotoxin has this power to block the communication, actually muting the nervous system.
And interestingly enough, the firebelly newt produces the self-defense weapon through its diet. A specific bacteria digested in the gut is responsible for generating the poison.
So what you eat is very important. But now I'm thinking about it is very difficult, it's problematic to carry poison in your stomach, right? So how does it hit that it doesn't hurt the animal?
Indeed, nature had to provide a trick to protect the newt. Once the toxin is created in the gut, a complex transport system throughout the body is put in motion to carry it from the gut to other parts of the body of the little lizard. For example, the glands of the skin of the lizard. And this all without any leakage, obviously. Similar to specifically designed containers that we use to transport dangerous materials such as radioactivity.
Yeah, because if there is a leak in the system, that is where the problem starts. So that might be quite of a jump, but okay, you tell me. That reminds me of a Simpson episode, the one in which Homer wants to eat the fugu, the puffy fish. Fugu, so he's in this Japanese restaurant. So is this the same toxis, the one in the puffy fish?
Exactly. The fugu sushi that Homer wanted to eat, that's exactly the same toxin that we're talking about. It's also found in pufferfish.
Oh, I thought so. And this is why it was very important. So the fish, the puffy fish, needed to be prepared and cut in a specific way because otherwise if the gut is open, the poison can leak out and go in the system of the fish and paralyze whoever eats it. And that's why Homer at some point was scared because he thought he had just 24 hours to live, right?
Yeah, I remember that episode vividly.
It was fun.
And Homer had all the reason to be scared. But the fugu fish that he eats can also teach us something about the positive effect of toxicity. Intriguing new research showed that low amounts of this toxin, so very small amounts, can reduce the presence of a stress hormone called cortisol in the blood of these pufferfish. Yeah. And it showed that by lowering this stress levels made these young pufferfish more resilient, and they grew up faster compared to the pufferfish that did not have this poison in their system.
So again, nature seems like a beautiful trickster. So basically, if we microdose this toxin in our bodies, actually that could be positive in a way. That could help us.
Exactly. That is a very valid point. And there's actually a drug on the market that uses microdosing of tetrodotoxin to treat cancer patients undergoing very harsh chemotherapy. Chemotherapy is a drug treatment that employs chemicals to kill fast-growing tumor cells in the body. Unfortunately, during these treatments, the nervous system is highly affected as well, and most of the patients experience severe pain.
Yeah. But if I understood correctly, the tetrodotoxin has this power to mute the nervous system. So if the nervous system is overstimulating, this is how this toxin, actually help because it acts and it's muted and it actually has the power to calm it down an overstimulated nervous system.
Exactly, because it blocks the nerve impulses. Small doses of it can help calm the nerves overstimulated by chemotherapy.
Yeah. Alfred Swain Taylor, that was a toxicologist, wrote that a poison in small dose is a medicine, and a medicine in high dose can be a poison.
Exactly, and I think nature even shows us here that it's the best teacher, because think about how many things we can learn from just observing animals and nature. And in addition, our friend, the firebelly newt, has another ace up its sleeve. With its incredible feature, is teaching us something precious about regeneration. Very powerful and beautiful word, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, regeneration and lizards. Actually, I think about, when the children that used to, I've never done it personally, I want to say it, but children that used to rip away the tail of the lizard just to see them grow back, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I know a lot of those people as well.
Yeah.
Anyways, regeneration is the way nature repairs itself. It is the process of replacing damaged or missing cells, tissues, and even organs with new ones. We experience regeneration on a small scale quite often, like our hair or our skin, which constantly regenerates. But the firebelly newt is extraordinary in this sense, as is why researchers are studying it.
Yeah. Well, we cannot regrow a leg as they do.
With their tail, yeah. Well said. We can call them regeneration masters. They regenerate part of the eye, such as the crystalline lens, and they can regrow entire limbs, tails, jaws, as well as portions of organs, like a heart or a brain.
Yeah, they are my heroes, absolutely. So, but explain a little bit more in details. How do they do that? Because it's fascinating.
Well, this process is very complicated, and we do not fully understand it yet, because otherwise we'd be using it, right, to regrow some of our body parts. But imagine, so the newt loses its tail because it was attacked by a predator or by one of your childhood friends.
Oh, not
and the tail is gone. And the body senses this, and this is like a wound on your skin that needs to be fixed. In order to regrow a whole tail, cells first need to multiply to ensure that there are enough building blocks to form the new body part. Those multiplying cells are pivotal because they do not cover any specific function in the system yet, but have the potential to take up any role that is required later on, like becoming a nerve cell or becoming a muscle cell.
Yeah, oh, that's fantastic. Basically, they behavior like children, like imagine there is a society in which you need more teacher or doctors because there is a shortage. So then what do? You actually take children that are like these cells not yet specified with function, and you educate them because they have the potential to become anything they want or anything a system, a society or a body needs.
Exactly. And these less specialized cells are actually called stem cells, and they form a mass which we call blastema.
Yeah, and blastema in ancient Greeks makes actually offspring.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Children. Stem cells are children.
And we humans, we also have stem cells. But the regenerative capacity is limited to a small scale. As I told you, we can regenerate the skin, for example, the biggest organ of the human body. In the skin, we do have stem cells in our deeper skin levels.
Yeah, because when you get like sunburn, your skin needs to regenerate, so new skin cells form, and the old cells like peel off. That's what happens, right? Yeah.
Exactly. But when it comes to the newt, stem cells work on a bigger level and transform it into a super creature capable of regenerating even bigger organs several times. So I told you about this crystal lens in the eye. They can regenerate it up to 19 times with the same, without losing any quality of it at all, which is remarkable.
It is.
Unfortunately, our genetics and metabolism don't allow us to regrow an entire leg, because after all, evolution is a trade-off, and we are more complex in other ways.
Yeah, the Firebelly Newt definitely wins the Regeneration Olympics.
Yeah, we'll give him the gold medal for that. But we do have one part of our body that is, in this sense, very, very special. The liver is the only internal organ capable of regenerating itself after damage. A liver can regrow to a normal size even after up to 90% of it has been removed.
No.
This unique feature of the liver is under specific scientific investigation up to this day, because always we want to know what's special about it compared to other organs.
Yeah. And I wonder how Zeus, like the king of the Greek god, knew about this capability of the liver, because as you know, the liver is the protagonist of one of the most terrible acts of vengeance ever appeared on this world. Like, have you ever heard about Prometheus?
Yeah, Prometheus, the one that stole the fire of the gods to give it back to the humans.
Oh yes, exactly. Prometheus was an ancient Greek god. Prometheus was the supreme trickster. He's described as the smiling softly Prometheus. He was the one who dared to defeat Zeus.
But, what does Prometheus actually mean? Well, I know what pro means, but Prometheus?
The pro is before in advance, and Metheus is from the Greek verb manthano, which means to learn. Beautiful. So Prometheus is the one that knew before everyone else. And probably this is also one of the reasons why he was smart enough to try to challenge Zeus. And so how did it happen, this trick? According to the legend, after the creation of mankind, mortals and immortals gathered together for a feast. At that time, during banquets, they used to sacrifice animals to the god. This is why you call the god on your side, right? Sacrifices. So Prometheus divided that day the sacrificial ox in two parts. he wrapped the most delicious and nutrient parts, like the entrails, in the skin of the ox. And then he wrapped the white bones into a piece of some very fine, very shiny fat part of the ox. And then he told Zeus, smiling softly, "Here, Zeus, choose between the two, the one that attracts you the most."
Yeah, and it's a bit like the stinky guts were covered, like packed beautifully, and the delicious steak on the other hand was not so deliciously looking. So obviously, what did Zeus choose was...
Well, Zeus was a god, but still he made a mistake. Zeus chose the shiny, fatty part with the bones inside over the other part, and then he realized that he got tricked. So, of course, he became very angry and took away as a punishment the fire to mankind that Prometheus loved so much.
But then Prometheus took the fire back.
Yeah, Prometheus took back the gleam of fire hiding in a hollow fennel stalk. This is beautiful.
Yeah, and the fennel stalk is a very common plant all over Greece.
Yeah.
And you know, it has this fibrous pith, which is the soft central zone of the flower. Probably this is why Prometheus used it, because in this way the fire could last longer, because the fibrous pith only gradually burned off.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then Zeus became even angry, furious, when he discovered the theft. So he chained Prometheus on the top of Mount Caucasus, and then he sent an eagle to eat his liver. The bird would eat the liver every day, but the organ, as you know, will grow up back every night. And this punishment is said to have lasted for 30 generations after a guy called Hercules, that you might have known about, arrived and killed the eagle with his arrows.
This is very, very intriguing. These myths have been postulated and created almost 3,000 years ago. How did they know that the liver can regenerate?
Well, this is a good question, and I don't know, I don't have the answer. But Hesiod, an ancient Greek poet, and that was among the first to report the story of Prometheus, wrote this. Again and again the eagle gorged on his mortal liver. Every day the long-winged bird feasted, but each night the liver grew back, exactly as before. So the immortal liver.
The immortal liver. Yeah, they knew about the regenerative aspects of the liver. How did they know that?
Well, we don't know. There are papers out there on this topic. So maybe it may be that the ancients observed the growth of the liver after part of the practice of the liver divination, because, you know, they use the entrails part of the animals to try to predict the future. Mm-hmm. Or maybe some other people say maybe it's from superficial wounds after battle that they could see this property of the liver. But at the end, we don't know.
Yeah, because I don't really believe that you would see that when opening up the dead body. But, I mean, still, it's interesting how interconnected this myth is. It's a fennel stalk carrying and hiding the fire, an eagle devouring a regenerative organ as a vengeance from a mighty god, and this mighty god was incapable of accepting that humankind could be preferred over him.
Yeah. So beautiful, the power of mythology. And we don't know why Prometheus loved humankind so much. I mean, we are cool, but are we that cool? We don't know. But we know that in a later version of this myth, Prometheus is not just the benefactor of humankind, he's the creator of humankind. According to this later version, Prometheus created humankind out of clay. So, not just the benefactor, but the creator itself. And this made me think about the modern Prometheus. The modern Prometheus is a fictional character, a certain Victor Frankenstein.
Victor Frankenstein, the scientist, exactly. He was experimenting with a technique to revive corpses. And while doing so, he created a monster. That's why everybody thinks Frankenstein is the monster, but it was actually the scientist creating the monster. He secretly assembled dead body parts.
Yeah.
He managed to give life to this creature using electricity. Like Prometheus, he was trying to defeat the law of the gods. But Sylvia, anyway, who can come up with an idea like this?
Well, an 18-year-old young lady named Mary Shelley at the beginning of the 19th century.
Who would associate an 18-year-old gentle noble girl from the 19th century with a monster like that?
Okay, who would associate Switzerland, the most perfect country, with a monster?
Valid point.
Yeah, because it's in Switzerland that Victor Frankenstein is born. So we are in the summer of 1816, and we are in a beautiful villa on the shore of the Lake Geneva. The villa is still there, and the name of the villa is Villa Diodati. But it was not an ordinary summer, because it was raining all the time, the sun seemed to have disappeared, and it was uncommonly cold. That year was known the year without a summer.
Exactly, and there was an event that actually caused all of this darkness. There was a volcanic explosion which was thought on the other side of the world, actually in Indonesia, and they thought that the ashes of the eruption of Mount Tambora wrapped the whole planet in a dark veil, not letting any sunlight reach the ground, making it very cold and dark.
Yeah, the ideal weather for creating a monster.
True.
So in the villa with Mary, sharing those dark days, there was her husband, Percy Bysshe Shelley, and his friend Lord Byron, and a physician, John William Polidori. Byron and Shelley were two of the most talented and brilliant young poets of their generation. So they were all in their 20s, these guys. And they consumed plenty of wine and laudanum. Laudanum is nothing but liquid opium.
So Switzerland can be fun indeed.
Oh yes, fun is an understatement here. So one night, Byron was reading a poem out loud. Amazing. And at some point, Percy Shelley just left the room, screaming and horrified. And as he would recount later, what he thought he saw his wife's nipples turning into demonic eyes. So these for me are obviously not just the effects of poetry.
Yeah, well, changing perception with mind-altering drugs is a very ancient practice.
Yes. So these imaginative young people spend those gloomy nights telling each other story, illuminated by the flickering flames of candlelight. So eventually, one mid-June evening, Lord Byron proposed that each of them would write a ghost story.
Yeah, and at that time was special because rumors were spreading that a famous Italian scientist named Luigi Galvani could make frog legs twitch through electrical impulses. So discussions around the experiments were spreading all over Europe at that time, and obviously also at the Villa Diodati.
Oh yes, this discussion animated also these young poets. So the same nights, Mary had a nightmare. She saw a man that would be the first ever appearance in her dream of Victor Frankenstein, the famous scientist. So Mary recounts, "I did not sleep, nor could I be say I think. My imagination possessed and guided me. I saw the pale student of an allowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out, and then, on the working of some powerful engine, show signs of life and steer with an uneasy, half-vital motion. Frightful must it be, for supremely frightful would be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanism of the creator of the world."
Mock the stupendous mechanism of the creator of the world. Frankenstein was trying to trick God, no less than our Prometheus.
Yes. And think about it, how beautiful this monster that populated children's imagination for centuries arose from the ashes of an Indonesian volcano, merging with the electrical sparks from the experiment of an Italian scientist.
And this Italian scientist, Luigi Galvani, who lived in the 18th century, was not just a physicist and biologist, but also a physician and philosopher. He had multiple jobs, so he could connect a lot of different ideas through that. And Galvani discovered how a piece of dead flesh, like a frog's leg, could be set in motion by a glittering stream of charged particles. When he attached electrodes to dead frog legs, Galvani noticed that the frog legs started twitching just like the frog was still alive.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of the first groundbreaking experiments to show that electricity could be transferred through biological tissues.
Wow. So, and the interesting part, even if this discovery was groundbreaking and he would have had a huge impact on electrophysiology, Galvani findings were considered very controversial and not believed. He was not believed by many of his peers.
Well, and even today, 200 years later, electricity running through our bodies still appears uncanny as a ghost.
Oh, yes.
The phantom of electricity made its most recent appearance in a lab at Tufts University here in Boston. Frogs are the main protagonists once again. The Levin Lab at Tufts University studies the development of tadpoles into frogs. Researchers there think that electricity could have a role in forming the body of the actual frog during this developmental process.
So this is extremely fascinating. Explain it a little bit more in details.
So what they've been seeing is before the actual cells move and gather together to form like an eye or an ear or an entire face, a signal of electricity anticipates the structure with a shiny, flickering silhouette. So just imagine you have this mass of cells which are unspecialized, our children again, but they don't know that they have to become an eye. But then, before the eye forms, there's electrical signal actually depicting the eye. And then the eye forms.
Yeah.
So this is why it's so intriguing.
Yeah. And giving the way. So electricity was working as a signal to instruct the cell how to behave to form a particular organ.
Almost like a football coach.
Yeah.
He assigns every player a position in the field. They form a team with one common goal. In this case, it's a tadpole. This electrical coach, the electrical signal, instructs the cells on how to dispose themselves in the shaping of a face or other organs, and on which function they should differentiate into.
Yeah, similar to the big ceremonies that they have during the Olympics, no? In which you see from above. Now, everyone takes a spot and they create shapes, no, to be seen from above.
Exactly. This intriguing new research points out that electricity plays a much broader role than previously anticipated. There's an entire book with the eloquent title We Are Electric by the science journalist Sally Addy that dives deep into this topic, discussing the importance of electricity in aging, cancer, and also neuroscience.
So that same electrical impulses that made the legs of Galvani's frog twitch, that in the imagination of Mary Shelley brought the creatures of Frankenstein back to life, that shaped the face of the tadpole in the last case, still amazes us in incredible ways.
Well, and what if we now tell you that there are now electrifying small copies of actual brains and using them as computers? These so-called organoids are groups of cells organized to form a miniature version of an actual organ that mimic, parts of its biological function. In particular, some researchers are working on brain organoids, small clusters of neuronal cells mirroring particular characteristics of an actual brain.
Scientists are already studying these organoids for drug development for neurological diseases. But what I think is that the potential of these little replicants of some functions of our organs can open science fiction scenarios which would have intrigued Victor Frankenstein himself.
Indeed. What researchers think is that these organoids in the future could be used as processing devices.
Cool.
Pretty much like computers. This new frontier of science is called biocomputing. Experiments indeed have shown that neurons cultured in a lab, in an artificial environment, and therefore outside of our actual brain, have the capacity to learn how to play a game.
Yeah, lab neurons can actually challenge you at an arcade game from the 70s. Do you remember Pong? Pong was the first computer game imitating table tennis.
A team in Melbourne called Dishbrain, a cool name if you think about organs in a lab dish, was able to stimulate these neurons through electrical impulses and to instruct them to move the paddle of the game as to play the ball back and forth.
Wow. So this experiment demonstrates that neurons in this lab can be programmed via electrical impulses to learn how to play a game. So that means if we apply the same to our little organoids, so the replicants of some specific functions of some organs, in this case the brain, we could instruct them to process information, just as microchips do, right? And turn them into biological computers.
But then we can go beyond this, and this is where things get very intriguing. A silicon-based system, such as a classical computer, uses bits which represent information either as a 0 or a 1. But a biological system is more complex, and it's not just binary, and it involves gazillions of variables. They respond, react, and adapt to the environmental factors, such as temperatures and nutrients. In other words, biological systems depend on the world around them. They don't just use functions in a 0 or 1 system. The computing that happens in between the molecules is not fully understood, or not understood at all yet, and it underlies quantum events.
In this sense, biological computers are more similar to quantum computer in a way.
As biological computers take advantage of the inherent quality of processes running in parallel in any cell.
Yeah.
So if you have a cell and you induce it with electrical signal, the atoms in the molecules within the cell will receive and then also react to these impulses simultaneously and in a distinct manner. This is indeed comparable to quantum computing, where the simultaneous computing power is achieved through qubits.
Yeah, so we talk about bits. Bits are pieces of information representing either 0 or 1. But so these qubits are, if it's Q is from quantum, are special, very special kind of bits.
And in this sense, they can transfer information and operate not just in the state of 0 and a 1, but in an infinite. So we get infinite number of possible states. The same complexity of infinity is present in biological systems when they interact with their environment. Everything inside a cell is like a moving party.
Or like a movable feast. This is how Hemingway defined Paris in the book.
Yes, people act different if the location changes.
If the music changes.
Or if it starts raining.
Or if the food is different.
Yeah. Perceiving the environment, tasting the food, is the first requirement to be able to understand it, and then react to it. Only natural systems are so deeply entangled with their world they live in.
Computers, which are silicon-based systems, don't have, so far at least, the same intricate relationship with the world that we have. Computers cannot perceive and understand the way we do. And after all, computers have no DNA.
Yet. But what happens if we add characteristics of a computer into a biological-based system, which can interact with its environment with the same complexity that we do? So by feeding a computer-based system with data, we are now creating artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And this is so powerful because it works beyond the computer, like in a cloud space.
Yeah.
So then by feeding biological-based system with data, are we then creating an artificial sentience?
Think about it. An artificial sentience that had its own cloud beyond the organoid, beyond the actual organ.
Merging computer and
incredible.
biology.
We are getting into science fiction territory here. So, artificial sentience. So we are here, imagine, an artificial capability of perceiving and reacting to the world, or even of experiencing more complex feeling. And not just pain or hunger, but anger, joy, fear, despair. All of these emotions strengthen through data-driven programming.
Exactly. The merging of the two is the powerful essence here. We might not even be able to imagine the magnitude of these expanded feelings that are surpassing biological structures. This system could build a form of anger that is the sum of all angers ever experienced from the time being. We are definitely not prepared to handle this.
Well, not. Like Victor Frankenstein, after all, was not prepared when he brought its creator back to life, because it turned out that the monster was not just an enhanced human being, let's say, but he was experiencing feelings. Mm-hmm. Not just positive feelings also. At some point, he felt anger and he sought revenge because he felt less lonely. So, and he tried and actually killed the wife of his creator. And he said, if I cannot inspire love, well, then I will inspire fear. So now, try to imagine if this intensified creatures that we are now imagining in our science fiction scenario, if they will turn against us like the monster of Frankenstein, haunted by feelings of anger, loneliness, and despair, all of these multiplied by the force of the computational system, and they will ask us, why do I suffer? Or why do I love?
What is love? But what if they have feelings so powerful that we cannot understand them anymore? It's like a love to the power of 500. What if their intensified love will escape our understanding and will turn into a power engine for them to step to the next level, and that without us?
Well, then what will happen, they will make a strength out of something that we didn't explore deep enough, probably. So then they could come and say, you humans, you always thought feelings were imperfections, accusing them of being your worst part. Well, you never really learned how to tap into them. Well, again, what if, merged with biology, artificial systems will turn into not a super rational, but super irrational and super emotional entities?
And maybe they will fall in love with the universe and they'll try to understand every little detail of it.
Yeah, I don't know about that, because is it really love, understanding? It's about understanding. I think that falling in love is something else. Because after all, to love Mozart, you don't really have to understand every note. So it's more about, it's the harmony that counts. It's when you perceive all the notes falling together into one place in a perfect way.
Yeah, exactly. Because why does Mozart appear so pleasant to our ears and other combinations of sound just don't? They're disharmonious. Like, that means that love has something to do with the way we perceive, the way we see. Perhaps these intensified entities, where biology and computers merge, will be capable of ultra perceptions. Well, intensified perceptions.
Perception. So maybe the more you perceive, the more you love. And this is why we are doing this podcast. This is the sense of wonder and hope that we talked about at the very beginning. We hope to teach you how to perceive, how to look at every aspect of the world at another level, and to see all the hidden connections in the map of the world. As William Blake wrote, to see the world in a grain of sand and be amazed once again.
And like being amazed to discover that the Greeks knew about the liver regeneration a long time ago, or that a stream of electrical particles appears before the body of the frog actually develops. And just perceive that they are part of a unified harmony, which we will continue to discover in the next episode. And we hope you'll join in again.
Beautiful. See you next time.
Thank you. I hope it recorded.